Contrary to common belief, very little does it actually matter where you start, but it's important, so important, where you finish in life. Today I want to show you how to unfuck your life, so by the end of this you'll have a clear plan, you'll have clarity on what you need to do to actually achieve your dream life. Because I'm 24 now, and I feel like already a lot of people at this age have begun to give up on their dreams, give up on the idea of that start, give up on the idea of that company. But you don't have to, because life is like Lego. And that should be catchphrase. Life is like Lego because there's fundamental building blocks that when you understand how to put them together in the right order, then you're able to achieve your dream life. And I'm far from achieving my ideal dream life, but I lived the dream life that I would have dreamed about, even 3 years ago. So I do feel like I have some leg to stand on in telling you this, because I've been able to use this process to achieve my dream life. And there's more to go, but hopefully if you're feeling like you're behind with where you want to be in life, then this will give you some clarity. So, we all get dealt a hand of cards, we don't really have control over that. When we're born, we either get born, and when I say type A, type B, type C, I don't want you to imagine type A, type B personalities. I'm going to use these in a different context. I'm going to use these in the context of your upbringing and your parenthood. So, we imagine, type A, this is the broken home. So I'm going to put BH. Type B, we've got the MC, so this is your standard middle class home. And then you've got the HN, which is high net worth. So we can't really decide who our parents are. Well, unless you're I'm not going to go there. But when we are born, we either are born into, a family with, stable, sort of stable middle class, very stable, sort of a very, a good life, there's not much trauma. And trauma can be a great motivator. That's what I'm trying to say. So when we go to, the type A broken home, we might see a lot of trauma, stress, low income, because they no longer have two parents providing an income. And then the high net worth. So this, this might be, multi-millionaire parents, a comfy life, luxury. And you might be thinking, well, I wish I had this lifestyle, or, I wish I just had the stable lifestyle, but you come from a broken home. But all of them have their benefits, and all of them have their disadvantages. So with the BH, the broken home, the benefits of this are actually that pain and stress and trauma and humiliation are often a great motivator for success. And if you come from this, then it's likely that your personality type is going to be driven by money, because we always tend to chase something that we lack. So if you come from the home where, there was a lower income, unstable, then you're going to be seeking comfort and money and wealth and what that brings, which is comfort. Whereas if you're in the middle class, then you're going to have to look for some, or middle class, I'm generalizing quite a bit here, so you need to take it with a pinch of salt, but middle class, stable home, nice family, parents aren't divorced. If you're in this section here, then it's likely that money is not going to be your main motivator, because it could be still, you could still be after the good job, the good family, but it's likely that you're not in dire pain of money because you have the family support there. If you fuck up significantly, you can ask for a little $5,000 here from the dad, $5,000 from the mum, whatever, from granddad. So this means that you really need to find your why. So if you don't have much pain as a motivator, you need to find a deep why. What you want to do with the world, what you want to change about the world, whether you want to go and, plant more trees, whether you want to create more eco-friendly energy. You need to dig deep and find a why that is bigger than money, because money is a bit of a cop-out in the fact that it's, the overrider of actually finding a real why. And, I can be extremely guilty of this as well, because I would say, to a degree, I come from, it sounds weird saying broken home, but I didn't come from a broken home because my mum was amazing and everything like that, but I didn't come from your traditional, stable family, let's say that. So for me, an easy motivator was money, but this can lead to a lot of problems, because your relationship with money should never be that you're chasing money. It should always be that you feel that you have enough, you have abundance, you have gratitude for what you have, and therefore you're attracted to opportunities that bring you money. And, it sounds as quite wishy-washy right now to say it, but there's so much truth to that, and I'll get into it later in the video. But you've got your money as your motivator, You've got to find your why for this. And then we have the high net worth family. Totally different paradigm in itself, because someone who has a high net worth parents, they're likely to have lived and been brought up in luxury. Beyond that, it's not their choice. That's, what they were born into. So they really have to find, reason to dig deep, because they know that they might even have the safety net of inheritance. So what's the point of me going out and pursuing a huge career and, spending so much time and grit into it when I know I'm just going to be rich anyway once my parents die, or once I get access to my trust fund at a certain age. So this one requires you to really look deep into yourself and find motivations. And I have friends in this category, and I have some that, are really extremely motivated. Their parents extremely wealthy. However, they're still, pursuing careers. They're still going hard at it. They're still hustling. And that is a testament to good parenting. That's what I want to say. But what you need to realize is whatever card you're dealt in this category, you don't have control over that. And you've just got to deal with that. And you've got to realize that ultimately, once you come of age, once you're about 16, that you have ultimate dominion over your life, regardless of your upbringing, regardless of, how much you've been abused or how much trauma you've had in your childhood. You can flip that around. You can change that. You can wake up tomorrow and decide you want something different. Yes, you're going to have the emotional baggage here. You're going to have that trauma deep rooted in you, but that is not to stop you. You can see countless examples of, something like 76% of millionaires in the US are actually self-made. Do you think a lot of them come from, wealth? No, they didn't. They're self-made. So that's something you keep in parents. So, and then, what you take with this as you will, you begin to develop a little bit of a personality. You become a teenager. You come to young adulthood to say, this is what's sort of dictating your life. Your parent, that dictates your life from, sort of 0 to, let's say, like 16 when you become to individualize. So you've got them cards. You now got to play them cards in life. So we're now at, let's say 20 years of age. This is when you begin to, really explore the hedonistic side of culture. And I mean this in the way of, it's very normalized at this age, and it's normal for people to want to socialize, meet women, meet men, whatever it is, go out drinking, maybe do drugs. But really, this is a hedonistic pursuit of pleasure. And by hedonistic, I mean, it's sort of self-centered. It's essentially, as a child, you are slightly hedonistic. You're sort of pursuing your own sort of pleasure. You just want to, find out what's fun for you. But when you carry this on into your 20s and things like this, you're basically acting as a grown-up child, which is not going to benefit you at all. It's essentially just going to slowly degrade your life and cause you to drift until, in a few years' time, the compounding effect of you being hedonistic is going to be that you're going to be in your 30s, your early 30s, and you're going to have nothing achieved. You just pursued pleasure for the last, 5-10 years. So what we need to be careful of is there is definitely a balance. And I'm not saying you shouldn't go out and drink, you shouldn't go out and do partying, you shouldn't go out and go them raves, because you definitely should, because you need to experience that, you need to have balance in your life. But what I am saying is, your end goal in life should not be to go out every weekend and find your enjoyment from that. You should find your enjoyment from something a little bit harder. If it wasn't hard, then everyone would do it, and it wouldn't be worth even achieving. So, it has to be hard in some degree. It's like, for example, when people say, why is this course so expensive? Because, it brings pain in you, and the fact that it's so expensive that you're going to take action on it. Similar to this. And, this hedonistic pursuit of pleasure looks like this in most people's lives. So, they're down here, it's the end of the month, they've not got much money left after their job. They get paid, so they're back up here, being paid. They go out partying, they spend the money again, so they drop back down, they get paid again. And they live in this drifting cycle, as I like to call it. And they basically are living in the sum average of their highs and lows, which is definitely not what you want to do, because you're essentially just going to drift your entire life, and you're not really going to make much progress in either direction, because you're living at some average when that's not what you want. And life's never going to look like, a line that goes straight up like this. But what we can do with this line is make it look exponential. So this is what we usually see in life. This is what we see in wealth graphs of extremely wealthy people. It tends to be nothing for a long while, very slow progress, and then it just seems to exponentially grow. And that is, one of the beauties of this earth, of this world, is the compounding nature of life. And we see it in all walks of life. And, in order to achieve this exponential growth in your life, There's nothing you really need to do too hard. You don't need to no fap. You don't need to, quit drinking, completely. What I found is just a soft sacrifice is enough to enable you to achieve this. And by soft sacrifice, I mean this can be eliminating, Netflix. This can be spending 1 hour a day on your goal. This can be, choosing to go out, instead of every week, you can go out once a month. And, really, when you're working in the day, you can, no phone, so no social media scrolling. And I think this is one of the worst things for you, social media scrolling, because it's so addictive, and I've been guilty of it as well. I don't sit here on my pedestal and say, I'm an amazing human, I don't do any of this, because I definitely do. But what I am is aware of it, consciously aware of it. And that's something that I'm trying to make you guys aware of as well. So whenever you're working, the biggest thing to do is just get your phone away from you, get it out of your immediate sight, because once you do that, it makes it 10 times easier to actually get what you need to get done. And, if I know it's sat on my desk and it's pinging away, I'm going to look at it. It's just habit at this point. So if you can remove it from your environment, instead of trying to fight your free will, environment is the biggest factor to motivation. So now we've got a base, so you understand that no matter what cards you're dealt, understand what sort of, traits that gives you towards money, whether that makes you, someone who is driven by money, someone who needs to find their own why because they're not driven by money because they had money, someone who comes from a high net worth family, so you need to find an even bigger why to do what you want to do, because you might say, well, what is the point in life? What is the purpose of life? So for you, it would be to make a bigger impact. But regardless of what cards you've got, you go into your early 20s, and this is the point what really matters. This is the point where you don't want to follow this hedonistic pursuit of nothingness, as it basically is, as you don't want to live on this sum average line. And what you need to realize in your early 20s is you want to make some soft sacrifice. As I said to you, you want to get rid of the Netflix, you want to work on your goal at least an hour a day, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be business, doesn't have to be making money. If you want to learn how to paint, if you want to learn how to drive a car, if you don't have a license, just spend an hour on it a day and watch how much progress you make in your life. And then the next element of it is faith. Now, it's something called Psycho-Cybernetics, a book written in the 60s by a plastic surgeon, who basically realized that, even when he would make a significant change to someone, for example, he would make their nose a lot smaller, they would come out of the surgery and they'd say, well, you've not done anything to me, this is a scam. And he realized that because most of it was in your head, and no matter how much you change the physical appearance, as long as they still had that belief about them, they still see themselves that way. So what we need to be careful of is to not jam our automatic goal-seeking mechanism that we all have in our brain. So we all have this inbuilt desire to be successful, to have the material wealth, or achieve that goal. It's built into us as humans. It's it's part of the algorithm of evolution. But we can often jam this with too much conscious effort. So the more we try and force our way into something, we sit there on the desk and we go, I need to get this done today. And you realize your mind wants to do everything but do the task when you try and force it to do something. So, if you ever feel like you're in that situation where you just, you need to do something, but you sat there in your head just spinning, just take a break, step out the environment, get a change of environment, go for a walk, and come back to it. Because you need to know what you want to do, what you want, not how. The how will come as you try it. So, if you want to start a £1 million startup, if you try and think of every little angle and way to get there, it's often going to stop you from doing it altogether. But if you just say, this is the goal, I'm going to start on it, I'm going to take one step today, I'm going to put that hour in, and the progress you'll make on that will be absolutely insane. And this is something I've done a lot in my life. Whenever I'm deciding I need to make a YouTube video today, I need to upload, I've not uploaded in so long, I often come into this sort of writer's block where I can't even, I feel slow on camera, I'm making mistakes, I can't do anything, and, I can't think of ideas for videos. But when I take a step away, and I decide, I do my affirmations, say, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I can see myself making this video, this perfect video. It often comes, and it's like this creative inspiration. And that's something I believe all humans should tap into, because we all have access to it, but we often all operate on a lower level of consciousness where we don't have access to that creative flow because we're so bogged down by social media and day-to-day life and stresses, which is understandable. But just go for that walk, put your earphones in, listen to some music, get yourself out in the sun. If it's not sunny where you live, get yourself out in the rain, get an umbrella, and just release that tension. And almost, even if you don't believe in God, have some faith. Have some faith. Release that idea of what you want to do to the idea of faith. See it has already happened. Close your eyes, see it has already happened, and watch it unfold, and watch you feel way more comfy, and watch you be able to achieve that goal a lot easier. If you're at a point in your life where you're like, well, this is all good and well, but I'm addicted to drugs, or, I can't stop partying. And you can't stop partying because you don't have a big enough why, you don't have a big enough goal that is more important than partying. So it's not necessarily your fault, it's not, don't blame yourself, but guilt on yourself for going out every weekend. It's because you don't have something else, something bigger to work on. And all that requires you to do is just sit down and think about it. Sit down and think about what really matters to you, what matters to your family. Imagine yourself when you're 30 years old, where do you want to be? And really think of that person and think, is the person I am right now ain't going to be any different to that person if I keep doing exactly the same thing? So let's go a little bit deeper. I'm going to rub this very creepy drawing out of the devil. I've actually lost my spray, so this actually might be quite dirty. I don't know why it's so dirty, to be fair, because I don't even use it that much. But let's just get rid of this. The biggest thing I want to stress is no matter where you are in your life, you are 3 good decisions away from changing it all. You literally are. You can wake up, decide you want more. That is terrible handwriting. You're probably not even going to trust me because the handwriting's that bad. But you can wake up tomorrow and decide you want something different. And whether you're waking up with that hangover, with that that come down, whatever it is that you have, just know that at any moment you can change it. You can turn it around. Yes, it's going to be hard at first. Yes, you're not going to want to do the work at first because you programmed your brain to, get cheap thrills essentially. Well, depending on what you're doing, it might not be cheap, but you have the ability in you. You have the capability. You have the means to do it. Whether you have no money, whether you're starting with money, it's often easier to start without money because you've got that drive. So, I hope you got some value from this video. I just wanted to share with you, the process, the building blocks of understanding your childhood, your drivers, understanding, your opportunity in later life, understanding not to be part of the drifters and go down this hedonistic pursuit of pleasure, which I see a lot of people go down, the clubs at the weekend, the raves constantly. Yes, you should do them in moderation, but understand that, it will come to some sort of detriment towards your goal because, if you don't sacrifice some of these things, self-sacrifice, then your goal will become the sacrifice. And that's an important thing to remember. And whenever you say yes to other people when you should be working on your goal, you're essentially saying no to your goals. So say no to the people and say yes to your goals. I'll leave you with that one. So see you guys in the next one.